There's a story coming out of Canada where a lesbian couple have been attacked by a so-called group of men. Now, I know this is in Canada, but this is the type of story we see across the Western world, including the UK. Why aren't they mentioning who this group of men are? Even the supposed quote-unquote fascist rag, the Daily Mail, refuses to state the identity of the men. In fact, it just calls them a group of men who they accuse of making rude comments. The Metro does the same thing, as do all the LGBTQ websites as well. In the end, you have to go on YouTube to the GB News channel to finally get an insight as to who it was. Oh, and surprise, surprise, it was Middle Eastern men. Middle Easterners, of course, famed for their tolerance for different lifestyles. Now, do you think the mainstream media would be quite so quiet about the identity of these men if they were, say, reform voters? We all know that they wouldn't, but the reason they don't talk about the identity of the men is A, because they've been convinced it would be somehow racist, B, because they want to maintain the image that all men are the problem, and C, because they especially want you to think it could be white, evil, conservative Western men. But who are these supposedly evil white Western men who just want to discriminate against everybody? Well, ultimately, it's people like me, Christian conservative men. They want you to think that people like me endorse this sort of behaviour, while I find it totally appalling. As I've been very clear about on this channel, I'm not very pro the modern LGBTQ agenda, but fundamentally I've always been honest that I believe every human being has dignity and worth, and no innocent person deserves violence. But that doesn't go down so well with the progressive modern media, so they want to present the idea that all men are dangerous and just might do this to anybody at any time for any reason. We've seen this sort of thing go on in the UK too, when the BBC were reporting on a lesbian couple who got attacked on a bus in London. The assailants seem to be, and how can I say this without getting my channel taken down, what the BBC might describe as architects, engineers and musicians. Yet when people committing these sorts of crimes are enrichers, the mainstream media don't want to say that because A, it affects their progressive ideology, and B, they just want to blame the average man. Perhaps what's most sad of all about all this is the LGBTQ types will still vote for people like Justin Trudeau and the Labour Party in the UK, which simply means more mass immigration for them and more dangerous streets in the long run. Yet if they even heard me say such a thing, they'd be yelling and virtue signalling on Twitter about how evil I am for pointing that out. But I think I'm losing a battle here against the progressive media machine, which seems to just demonize anybody like me who seeks to point out the truth. For me, this is all leading to inevitable collapse of the Western world and our cities. It's very sad, but we have to accept it and move on to a future where we don't have to deal with this sort of thing. If that involves balkanization, so be it. Anyway, these are just some of my thoughts. Do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.